Well, I finally think it's about time. It's time, isn't it? It's time these were going out. They've been doing the plant hokey-cokey for the last few weeks. They've been going out in the greenhouse during the day. When it's been warm enough, they've been staying out overnight. If the temperatures have dropped, they've come back in. But it's time, isn't it? Look, we've got glorious weather at the moment. It is lovely. It is sunny. The long range forecast, so the next 2 weeks, overnight temperatures are looking pretty steady around these parts, sort of 8-9 degrees centigrade overnight. Obviously inside the polytunnel, where we're going to pop these, it'll be a couple of degrees warmer. Even if it dips just below 10, you know, if we go down to sort of 6 or 7, they'll be fine. They'll survive. They'll be all right. So the first 8, the early adopters, the brave few, are going out now. We're going to do the quad grow. It's going to get set up, trying something new inside the polytunnel this year, and they're blowing over in the wind. There's some good timing. And on that note, let's get inside the polytunnel and start getting things sorted. So we've actually got just a little bit of sorting out to do first, because you know, when sort of over the autumn, over the early part of the spring and that, you have these ideas of floating shelves and things, and you've got peas and cabbages and collies and whatnots on here waiting to go out, and you make use of the shelf as it's there for. But this is where the tomatoes, the first batch of 8 tomatoes, so we've got 4 quad grow pots at the back and 4 will go in front. We've got some lovely little dianthus there that are waiting to grow in the troughs, the pots, the whatevers, and we've got 2 empty pots over there that we don't really need. So I guess I need to, how am I going to take this down? I think if I take this side off first, and this is when you've put a few knots. Let me try and figure this out. There we go. Oh, there it is. It's tied on the top. You know, when you do something at the time and it probably seems like a good idea, and then when it comes to reversing that, you start to question why you did it. So why on earth have I tied that on the top? That makes it 10 times easier. And then we've got a little secondary, a little backup knot here. So I think once we release that and bring that down, and hopefully that'll just hang on there, and we'll get the other end down. So we'll get this sorted, we'll get it shifted, and finally, I'll feel like I've got a bit of space, because I was up here last night and I started setting this up. The beds needed a little bit of weeding and stuff like that, and I was starting to get stuff set up. And I've come up early this morning because, you know, it was probably 35 degrees in here last night. I was baking hot. It was roasting. It was too much. Anybody who's ever been in a polytunnel or a greenhouse for any length of time in the sunshine will know exactly what I'm talking about. But leave it with me. Let me get this finished off and sorted, and I'll come back to you when we finally got some space. And just when I was taking that that shelf down, I remembered I've left the fresh compost in the back of the car. The compost for the tomatoes, but we'll come to that in a bit. But I am, as you can see, incredibly lucky that I can actually get my car right up next to the plot, so I can just throw bags of compost over the fence like that if I need to. Now for the quad grows, I have actually bought some of the new capillary matting that is evading me. I've got some fish blood and bone as well. Those of you who maybe saw my last one, you know I need it. So there's proof, there's evidence. I've actually remembered. I've actually been to the shop and bought some, but I bought some new matting. You're supposed to use new matting in the quad grows every year, but honestly, the state of my boot, there is seed trays, there's weed matting, old compost bags, bottles of water, there's a saw, there's plant pots, there's golf balls, there's cardboard boxes, everything but capillary matting. So we've had a slight change of outfit. The little body warmer thing's gone and the hat's on. It's only 10 a.m. I came up at 10 a.m. on purpose because I thought, you know what, it'll not be too bad. We'll beat the heat. It's already just shy of 31 degrees centigrade. We've got one of those, I think I showed you the little Govee thermometer thing that monitors the humidity, the dew point, the temperature, all that sort of stuff. Bluetooth app to your phone, absolutely marvellous. Got one in the greenhouse, bought a second one, installed it up here in the polytunnel so I can keep track of what those sort of highs and lows are during the day, all the way through the year. Quite a cool piece of kit. Link in the description down below if you want to go off and have a look at that. So the Quad Grow, I'm looking forward to using them. We've gone a little bit Tony C. Smith here. So we've got the weed fabric down in this area, the polytunnel. So on both sides here, this is where we do the tomatoes. In the middle section, because this is where the cords come down from the roof and it supports them. It's dead easy. It's the best place for them, trust me. I got the Quad Grows last year. I was late buying them. I thought I would do a thing in the greenhouse, extra tomatoes, made a mess of them, bit ham-fisted, didn't do a very good job. So really looking forward to giving them a proper shot this year. Give them a try and we'll get them set up. But before we do that, tomatoes. I've got 8 tomatoes here and I think I've brought 8 different varieties because we're trying to do quite a lot this year. And again, the other side of the polytunnel, once I've got it set up, it'll mirror this side, apart from we'll have halo pots on that side, not the Quad Grows. If the Quad Grows work out, by the way, I'll probably buy some more. If they turn out to be really good this season, especially with the watering, I'll probably buy some more. But tomatoes, what varieties do we have? Let's do a bit of a sort of top of the toms, top of the tomatoes. We've got a Paul Robertson, there we go, Paul Robertson. We have got Marvel Stripe. What else have we got hiding in here? Unlabeled one. Unlabeled ones are Sun Gold, the king of tomatoes, I may add. Another one that 2 Sun Golds. So remember I said 8 different ones, but I've obviously gone 2 Sun Golds, with Sun Golds obviously being the best tomato available. We have got Chupa Chups. That doesn't look massively healthy, but I'm hoping once it's in the Quad Grow, once it's all settled in there, it'll be good. We've got Heinz, one of the ones from Mick. We've got Rose Crush that is massive and is desperate to go into a Quad Grow. And last but not least, we have got Black Brandywines. That's the ones we're doing in the Quad Grows out here. Now, I've made a bit of a mess. Let me tidy these back up so I can get some space again, and we'll show you how we're going to set them up in the Quad Grows. So like I say, first time doing them properly. Last year, I was a bit amateurish, and when I mentioned the capillary matting before, this is it. Capillary matting, because it works in quite a clever way. Hole in the bottom of the pot. So this all comes as a kit. I mean, tell you what, there's 2 things I'd say about the Quad Grows. 1, they're a little bit expensive. They're a bit pricey. 2, they're blooming marvellous. They're really good bits of kit. From what I've seen, you know, I'm not a complete expert on them just yet, but from what I've seen, they are brilliant bits of kit. And I think it's one of those things where you get what you pay for. You see, put your capillary matting through the hole in the bottom, pointy bit always goes up through the hole in the bucket, and you want it to come up to around, there's a little rim, there's a little line around the top of the pot. You want the material to come up to around about there. And once that's in, it doesn't matter if you don't quite get it right, you can pull it at the top, you can pull it at the bottom, you can adjust it, you can sort it out. It'll be fine, you'll figure it out. I'm just gonna pile some compost in the bottom there. It's just bog standard, multi-purpose, peat-free compost. The thing about using the Quad Grows is, I'll come to the feed in a bit, but it's got some special feed that comes with it as part of the kit. So you don't actually need to have the most wonderful compost. I mean, I wouldn't be using the worst compost in the world. You know, I wouldn't be going and getting the tatty buckets out and sort of using the compost out of that, so to speak. But the compost doesn't need to be the finest. Now, this Heinz has been desperate to go out for a while. You can see it's got lovely roots. It is starting to get a little bit root bound, a little bit pot bound there. But the important thing, let me show you this. See if I can show you this here. I don't know how well it'll show up on the camera. But the capillary matting is coming up the side of the plant that's going in there. So it's going to be pressed right up against the side of that sort of bottom block of compost that's in there. Now maybe that bottom sort of truss is just sort of sitting on there. What I might do is just raise the height just a little bit, because I just don't want it getting a bit fusty, a bit messy. We'll get the first one done. Let's get in there. I can just sit over the edge. That'll be fine. I'm not going to faff on any longer. So we've got the matting pushed up against the side of that, and I'm just going to pack that in round the back nice and tight. Now I'll bring the camera over in a second action to show you how this is looking, so we can get a bit of a close-up shot rather than me just sort of telling you. from over there at a distance, just before I top the compost all the way up so you can see how it's looking. So let's get a nice close look at how the setup is here. So this is our Heinz tomato plant, and this is the capillary matting. So you can see this is the block of compost. This is the edge here, the block of compost that the plant's in. We've got the capillary matting pressed right up against it, and the compost is going to come up to this line that runs around the edge of the bucket. I think it's maybe it's maybe a centimetre or two too high, but like I mentioned before, the bit that pokes out the bottom, we'll just give it a wee tug down, and that'll be absolutely fine in there. So I guess the only other thing to do is for me to get finished off with these plants. So we'll get the first 4 done, and I'll show you how I'm going to set it up with the actual quad grow, the sort of water reservoirs at the bottom, the matting, the feeding. The feeding's quite important, the way you can do it actually works out really well. But we'll get these sorted out, we'll get these first 4 sorted out, and I'll come back to you in just a jiffy. So we are, as they say, cooking on gas, and it feels a bit like that, because we're now up to 33 degrees here in the polytunnel. It's getting a bit warm. I wish I was here 7 o'clock in the morning to get this done, but I was a bit late. I had stuff I had to do this morning before I could get up here to crack on with these. But alas, progress. Look, we have 4 tomato plants in the quad grows, and there's a few things, there's a good few things. There's a few customer service announcements I want to make, and a few things I want to tell you about the quad grows. So we've got the tomatoes planted up. You know that little line I showed you on the top of the, let me just grab one here. Ignore the bits and pieces in there, but this line that runs around there, that's the level that you put the compost up to. Now I've gone just above that line, because when the compost gets wet, when it gets watered, it's going to sink. It's all airy and light and fluffy at the moment. When it's come out of the bag, it'll sink down. So I've put it just above that line, just to sort of counter that sort of sinking thing that's going to happen. Second, and if I hear this one more time, I saw a thing on Instagram the other day, and it was somebody going, I'm planting my tomato plants nice and deep because the hairs on the stem of the tomato will all turn into roots. No, they won't. The hairs on the stem of tomato plants do not turn into roots. The hairs on the stem of a tomato plant are like the plant's defense mechanism. They sense the atmospheric conditions around and about it. They sense temperature, they sense humidity, they sense water, liquid, that sort of thing, and it tells the plant what it needs to take in. The hairs on tomato plants do not turn into roots. Right, there, I've got that out of my system. Next, I was going to tell you about the nutrients. So when you buy quad grows, you get 2 bottles of nutrients. You get A and B, 3 millimeters of each to 1 litre of water. Now in this watering can here, it was 10 litres, so I put 30 millimeters of each feed, and it's gone into the reservoir. To fill one of those reservoirs is pretty much 20 litres. So you're talking 2 watering cans worth. And I reckon, in theory, from listening to other well-seasoned quad grower users, that'll last about 2 weeks before I need to fill it up again. And if that's the case, I am absolutely going to get some more quad grows for next year, because at the minute, or last couple of years, when I've come up here, when I've been using the halo pots, which are great, they're fine, they're fab, they're brilliant, they're a lot cheaper than quad grows, every other day, I'm up here watering, and it takes time, takes effort. It's, gotta go and water. I mean, I'd be here anyway, watering the outside plants, but in here, if you miss a day or something like that, it can be pretty catastrophic when the temperatures are already, we're just at the start of May, or already 33 degrees in here. The plants can suffer really, really badly. So hopefully that'll make a big difference. And finally, the other thing, and let me show you how this sort of goes together. So remember earlier on, we poked the capillary matting up through the bottom of the plant pot. Well, the other end of it goes in a hole in the top of the reservoir, like that, and it just sits in that sort of reservoir of nutrient-filled water, and I'm standing on the little tray down there, in there, and the good thing about it is the plants then have access to the sort of the liquid and the nutrients when they need it. So the plants are taking it when they need it. Again, with the halos, the plants wait for me to come and water. So they only get the nutrients and the water when I decide to come up and water. Yeah, pretty regular, usually every other day for the halos. But if they've got access to it, as and when they need it, surely that has to be better. Anyway, that is it in theories. That's a bit of a sort of, a bit of a rundown of the quad grows and the setup that we're going to have in here. So I'm going to put, we've got another 4, I've got them all over the place and it's a bit messy. I'll get it all tidied up for the final shot, don't worry. We'll get the other sort of 8 quad grow pots set up here, though I think we might only do 7 because I might be shy. You know, I was trying to find that capillary matting before. I think I'm missing 1 bit now. I think I found most of it, but I'm missing 1 bit. But we'll get it set up and I'll come back to you and we'll see how we're looking. So we're not looking too bad in here. If we look at the side, it's a bit messy. Within the next week, this will look 10 times different. The outside plants, we've got cabbages and collies and peas and things there that need to go out. We've got some dianthus, we'll put them out there. Add a little splash of colour in places. The cardboard is there for a secret project that needs to hurry itself up because that needs to be gone within a week or 2 out of that bed, so I can get some more tomatoes in. And speaking of the tomatoes, here we are. Here's the quad grows. They're all set up, got the tomatoes in. I was 1 piece of capillary matting short, which is why we have 1 empty pot. I'll have a look at home, I'll find it, come up with the weekend and we'll get it sorted. So the quad grows, one thing I forgot to mention before is that if you set them up in a 4 like that, the 2 reservoirs can join to each other with a little pipe in the middle. So if one set of plants is using more water and more nutrients than the other, it'll drain water through from the other reservoir, so they just sort of balance each other out. That's a bit of a sort of fallback, bit of a backup plan there. Things don't quite go right. You can separate them, you can have them in like sort of 2 pairs, and there's little caps that go on at the end that stop the water going out. That is just as good as well. You can set them up however you want, but I'm pretty pleased with how they're looking. They're all set up, they're looking all lovely. A couple of little brushy bonuses here in that there's gaps at the front for putting canes in. Now I'm not using canes, I'm using this sort of paracord system you might be able to see here. Put links in the description down below to the paracord and the clips that I use to sort of set that up. But the brushy bonus is I can put the plant labels inside the holes for the canes, and it saves having them in the pots, and it saves all, you know when you've got a label and then you can't quite see it because the plant's all over the place and there's a bit of this here and a bit of that there. So we'll put them in the front, just the job, and we can see them nice and easy. So done at last. And one thing I am gonna do in the next couple of weeks is move these. It was predicted that I would bang my head on them, and the prediction has come true. At least, I would say, at least a dozen times over the last hour I've been in here. I have banged my head on these hanging baskets. So they're going to go. I'm thinking I might put brackets on the woodwork at the back there, hang a couple of them from there. I don't know where I'll put the 3rd one. I'll figure it out. I'll put them somewhere nice anyway, where they'll look all beautiful and lovely and they'll be out the way of the tomatoes, and more importantly, out the way of my head. Speaking of which, 39 degrees, too much for me. I'm going outside. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.